They called it the house that heard screams, but people in small towns learn to fold terror into routine. You keep your head down, you water the grass, you wave at the mailman, and you pretend the night is only dark, not hungry. Ashcroft Hollow, Alabama, 1992. The road into town runs like a thin vein between pines that lean inward, whispering as cars pass. The soil is red, the humidity a kind of weight, and the church bells carry farther than they should, as if sound here is reluctant to die. I had been with the Bureau long enough to know when a place is lying. Not with words, with silence. This one did. The first time I turned off Sawyer Road and saw the Hanley place, I felt that pressure behind the eyes. The old unwelcome tug that tells you a story has already decided how it will end. The house sat in a slump, as if time had leaned on it too hard. Paint scaled off in long curls, windows filmed over with dust. The porch sagged. If you stood still long enough, the quiet began to pulse. Disappearances always begin as paperwork. A boy late to dinner, a mother not answering the phone, a cashier who never clocks in. You stack forms, you call numbers, you listen to reasonable explanations, and then the pattern wakes up. Here, it woke fast. 3 cases in 6 weeks. All had a loose tie to one woman, Evelyn Cross, nurse's aide at the clinic, Sunday soprano at First Church of Eternal Mercy, the kind eyes people choose to trust. I met her on a Thursday. She opened the clinic door before I could knock, already smiling. That smile was soft and precise, like a bow tied too tight. I asked about the boy. She said, "Children run?" I asked where he might run. She said, "Away from noise." She did not blink. 2 days later, a rust-eaten bicycle turned up behind the Hanley house, half buried in leaves. The rear wheel still spun when we touched it, a useless little circle looking for friction. I went back that night without a warrant, because sometimes law chases truth and loses it. The side window had been pried, not from outside. The scratches bent inward. Inside smelled like copper left in the rain, and something lemon clean trying to cover what it could not. The hallway walls were dressed with children's drawings, circles intersecting and crude, hands rising from a black line like roots turned upward, eyes never closed, just larger, more patient, every page signed EC. I thought of Evelyn, then remembered the second missing girl, Emily Clark, and felt the floor tilt. Basements tell the truth the way scars do. This one did. A chair bolted to concrete, chains that had learned to hang without clinking. A small wooden cross nailed low where a kneeling head would meet it. The word cleansed carved beneath in the tidy hand of a person who refuses to hurry. Stains below, layered into the gray like a memory that found a way to live in stone. I didn't speak. I didn't touch the chair. I stood and counted my breath, then lost count because the room had its own breathing, slow and heavy, like someone sleeping under the floor. The next morning I waited outside Evelyn's house. Her car hood was warm. Wind pushed the hydrangeas against clapboard. She opened the back door before I reached it. On a small table sat a ring of candles and a jar with a thin crack curling through the glass like a smile. In the center of the ring, a photograph beginning to burn at the corners. The missing boy. Smoke rose in a straight line as if the air was holding it upright on purpose. Evelyn looked at me and said, calm as a nurse washing a wound, "Some souls are too loud to save." Then she pinched the flame with 2 fingers and did not flinch. Interviews are supposed to build a bridge. With her, it felt like measuring a void. She answered everything gently, as if granting me permission to fail. "Noise makes people sick," she said. "You know that, Agent. Haven't you seen what screaming does to a room?" I asked what she called noise. She said, "Regret." I asked what she called quiet. She said, "Mercy." I asked where the children were. She said, "Not crying." The recorder on the table captured my own breath louder than hers. When we were done, she touched the device with the back of her fingers like a mother checking a fever, and whispered, "Shh." The clinic yielded drugs you never want to find outside a surgery. Paralytics, sedatives, a sleep powerful enough to turn ribs into statues. In her bedroom, a cabinet behind neatly folded sheets hid a small tape recorder labeled Session 3. We played it in the squad room with the blinds shut and the lights low because instinct told me to make the world smaller. Breathing, measure perfect. A child crying, then trying not to. And Evelyn's voice, the gentlest thing I have ever hated. "Don't cry, my dear. You'll wake the house." The rest was not silence. It was a room remembering how to be quiet. When the tape clicked, no one in the room spoke for 10 seconds. A long time when you are supposed to be certain. Ritual isn't drama, it's discipline. Over the next week, patterns surfaced like bones after rain. Triangles drawn in ash, 3 candles burned to nearly equal stubs. A white cloth washed clean enough to fool a novice. The same crude Trinity symbol, 3 circles kissing, painted behind radiators, under stair nosings, beneath a loose plank on the back porch. The coroner's notes on a recovered body from the field 3 miles west were clean and cruel, lips stitched, tongue missing, injection site invisible, unless you knew to peel back the shadow and look where veins go quiet. Whoever did this wanted neatness more than speed. Whoever did this wanted the scene to behave. I read her notebooks at a metal desk with a coffee that tasted like the night it was poured. Neat cursive, no crossouts, no ink rage, lines that could have come from a hymn book if you didn't know how to listen. The voice comes in 3s. The child cries, the mother prays, the Redeemer commands. Pain washes sound. Stillness is proof. She wrote like a person charting weather. You could mistake the tone for sanity if you loved order more than truth. One page, folded and pressed flat as a leaf, held only 6 words. When the world stops screaming, I will rest. I do not scare easily. That sentence scared me. Exhaustion can disguise itself as mercy. Some people kill to feed hunger. Some kill to feed peace. The second group is harder to stop. We moved on her a week later, not because we were ready, because the pattern insisted. A call from a farmhouse southeast, a woman whispering as if her throat were in a fist. She's here. She's making them quiet again. The sun had the color of a bruise when we pulled up. No dogs, no wind. The door ajar in a way that announces a choice. Inside, 3 bodies placed with a geometry that wanted to be believed. 2 adults, 1 child, breathing, shallow but present. A single candle between them, a patient flame. Evelyn stood with her hands level with her waist, palms down as if pressing a bed wrinkle flat. She looked at me the way a conductor looks at a late musician. "You shouldn't be here yet," she said. "It's not your turn." The cuffs closed on her wrists with the sound of a drawer that's been empty too long. She did not pull. She did not bargain. She let the world decide what to call her. Jail softened nothing. She asked for a Bible and held it to her chest without opening it, the way the desperate hold photographs. "He's still talking," she said. When I asked who, the smile returned. Not kind, not cruel. The smile of a person who has replaced curiosity with certainty. The psych team ran their measurements. Regions that should light for empathy did not. Regions for sound and speech flashed like a city at night. She wasn't hearing random noise. She was mapping it into meaning. When a clinician asked if she heard them in that room, she tilted her head, listening to air, and said, "You wouldn't understand. You still hear them." I wrote that down, then underlined it, then wished I hadn't, because now it lives in my pocket whenever rooms go quiet. We dug under the Hanley place because guilt sinks. Linen shrouds pressed into dirt like prayer rugs, tongues missing. Scripture hemmed in red thread that had resisted rot. The bodies wore no terror on their faces. Drugs had carried them past that part. She had not loved them. She had not hated them. She had arranged them. There is a class of killer who removes chaos the way gardeners remove weeds, as an act of tidiness. Evelyn fit the type and exceeded it because she wrapped tidiness in theology and called it mercy. One more tape turned up, this one stuffed inside a cracked jar under a loose board on the back porch. The label read, Psalm 46. We played it alone because faith, even poisoned, feels private. Breathing, the same lullaby hum. My name or something like it said the way children say a stranger's shape. Then her whisper, be still and know, it broke. The tape shivered. I heard the faintest scrape, like a chair moved 1 inch by a careful hand, and then under everything a small sound that has no good name. Not a sob, not a plea, the soft pause that lives between both. I turned the device off and stared at my reflection in its plastic. A man older than he meant to be. A man who had learned too late that some silences are louder than sirens. I would like to tell you that was the end. Warrant, trial, easy label. But endings are a kindness this town does not offer. The house remained. The candles gone, the chalk washed, the doors boarded. And still, on certain nights, the quiet swelled until the air felt crowded. Deputies came back with stories they wouldn't put on paper. The porch boards hummed under a boot. A window flickered with a light that did not exist. The kitchen smelled like lemons some mornings, as if someone had tried again to wipe away what concrete would not confess. They asked me if I believed. I said, belief is not required. Pattern is. The pattern here was simple. Hurt tried to become holy and failed. Then tried again. You want me to say she was a monster. It's cleaner that way. It keeps the cold on one side of the glass. But I have read too many journals in neat hands. I have listened to too many voices that sound like prayer until you write them down and see the shape. Evil, the kind that lasts, is not wild. It is organized. It balances its books. It chooses soft instruments, lullabies, clean needles, jars that catch light like halos. It calls itself mercy because mercy is a door people step through without asking where it leads. They called it the house that heard screams. That is true. But it also heard vows and apologies and the small sounds children make when they discover adults do not mean the words they say in daylight. Some houses become museums. This one became a mirror. When you stand in the Hanley yard long enough, you hear yourself. All the things you chose not to say, all the cries you asked your own heart to keep down. If there is a haunting here, it is not of the dead. It is of everything the living asked to be quiet. I drove away the last night of summer with the windows down and the radio off. And for 3 miles, I believed the case would end where the road ended. Then, somewhere past the old billboard that promised forgiveness in 6 bold words, I realized I had been counting my breaths again. In, 2, 3, out, 2, 3, like a man obeying a metronome no one else can hear. I told myself it was nothing. Habit, fatigue, the way a long day keeps walking after you stop. But I also checked the rearview mirror twice at the same spot because some part of me expected to see the porch light on, and a figure at the upstairs window, and a hand that never learned to wave. This is what I know. The world does not end with screams. It ends with somebody deciding the screaming must stop, no matter what they have to call kindness to make it so. And if you want to sleep in a town like this, you tell yourself mercy and quiet are the same. You forget that one is a gift, and one is a glove you can pull over anything. So yes, they called it the house that heard screams. But when I think of it now, I don't hear the loudest moments. I hear the soft ones, the thread through the needle, the match before the flame, the page turning in a notebook that never tears. And in that softness, I hear the shape of a question that refuses to fade. What do we become when we worship silence more than truth? I don't have an answer. I only have a road I still avoid after dark, and a drawer that holds a tape I no longer play, and a voice that sometimes returns when rooms hold their breath. Don't cry, my dear. You'll wake the house. I thought arresting Evelyn Cross would be the end, but endings are luxuries in stories like these. After her capture, the town exhaled, or tried to. People brought casseroles to the sheriff's office, prayed at the church steps, convinced themselves that evil had a face and that face was gone. But houses like the Hanley place don't sleep because a name is in a cell. They keep listening. They keep feeding on what they've already heard. For weeks after, I kept hearing that lullaby, not in the air, but in memory. The rhythm clung like humidity, slow and patient. Every time I closed my eyes, it was there, a tune trying to make sense of its own echo. I began to reread her journals, line by line, searching for meaning that I might have missed. The deeper I went, the less it felt like words, more like code. She wrote about frequencies, about resonance, about the sacred balance between noise and flesh. She believed every living thing produced a frequency of pain, and that her duty, her divine assignment, was to tune it out. She called herself the Ear of Mercy. It was obsession disguised as theology, and the more I read, the clearer it became. She didn't invent this alone. Some of the passages matched fragments from a defunct sect called the Quiet Redeemer Movement, active in the 1950s across the southern states. Their scripture preached that salvation could only be achieved through harmonic silence, that sin vibrated through the body and could be purged only by eliminating the voice that carried it. She wasn't their first disciple, just their most patient one. The Bureau gave me permission to reopen the case as a psychological study, but to me it was more than that. I needed to know if she was truly a lone believer, or just another echo. I drove back to Ashcroft Hollow that October. The leaves were falling, brittle, pale, curling into the same patterns I'd seen on the walls of the Hanley basement. Nature imitating crime. The house hadn't changed. The boards still sealed the doors, but someone had carved a single word into the wood. Listen. The locals swore they didn't do it. Maybe they didn't. Maybe something else still needed to be heard. Inside, dust had settled like fog. I walked through the hallway, flashlight steady, notebook ready, pretending not to breathe too loud. The air was thick, stale, but somehow still alive, a body that refused to die. The children's drawings were gone, replaced by pale outlines where the paper had protected the paint. Even absence has shape if you stare long enough. In the basement, the chair was gone, just 4 holes where bolts used to anchor it. I crouched, touched the floor. Cold, dry, no scent of decay left, only that faint lemon cleaner she'd used, as if the house itself wanted to keep pretending it was pure. Then I saw it, a jar in the corner, sealed with wax. Inside, a piece of cloth, folded perfectly, white as bone. I knew better than to open it there. Back at the lab, we found embroidery, a pattern stitched in red thread, 3 overlapping circles, and in the center, a single word: complete. That night I dreamed of her, Evelyn standing at the foot of my bed, eyes black, lips stitched. She didn't speak, just tilted her head, listening as if I were the one making too much noise. When I woke, the radio was on, but static, not a station. Still beneath it, a hum, a pattern that pulsed in 3s. I tried to bury it in routine, paperwork, reports, silence. But silence has weight. It bends the spine if you carry it too long. A month later, another case arrived. Different state, different name, same pattern. A woman found in her bathtub, mouth sewn, eyes wide, hands folded in prayer. On her wall, drawn in ash, the trinity of silence. It couldn't be coincidence. I checked records, nothing linked, no shared associates. But the body told the truth. The same sedatives, the same post-mortem ritual cleansing. Evelyn Cross was locked in a federal hospital, yet someone was continuing her work, or finishing it. I visited her again. She was thinner, paler, but her calm hadn't cracked. "You came to listen," she said before I spoke. I asked her about the second murder. She smiled, that same steady smile. "He heard it too." "He?" I asked. "The Redeemer. He never needed my voice, only my faith." Her pupils dilated like ink spreading through water. "They're learning to sing again," she whispered. I left before she could finish. That kind of madness. If you look too long, it looks back. We traced the second crime to a small town church 2 counties away. The pastor admitted Evelyn had written letters, pages of scripture she'd mailed over the years to her brothers and sisters of silence. He'd burned most of them, he said, but one he kept. The letter was signed with her initials, but the handwriting was different. Inside, she wrote about building houses of stillness, about cleansing the noisiest souls, about teaching others to listen as she did. The signature was hers, but the words, colder, more clinical. It felt like doctrine evolving. We found 3 more victims across neighboring states. Same ritual, same symbols, each home marked with 3 concentric rings carved near a doorway. Each victim silenced. Evelyn's followers didn't copy her. They continued her experiment. And here's what haunted me most. They didn't kill randomly. They selected people who were loud in their suffering. Alcoholics, screamers, night terrors, people who cried in their sleep. To them, each victim was a note that needed tuning. They weren't monsters in their own minds. They were repairmen of creation. In the press, we called it the Choir of Silence. The name stuck. It made people curious, afraid, entertained. But every headline, every TV segment, that was noise too. The kind Evelyn hated most. I remember sitting alone one night, reviewing footage from her interrogation, frame by frame, trying to find some human crack in her armor. At one point, the camera glitched, half a second of static, and I saw something that shouldn't have been there. Her lips didn't move, but her reflection in the glass smiled. I replayed it, once, twice. The glitch vanished, but I swear the room got colder. The next morning I received a package, no return address. Inside, a cassette tape, unmarked. Against every rule, I played it in my office, breathing, faint humming, and a whisper, not Evelyn's this time, a man's voice, calm, deep. She only heard the beginning, then silence, long and deliberate. At the end of the tape, the same 3-note hum. I don't believe in curses. I believe in patterns. Patterns are predictable until they aren't. I sent the tape for analysis. The audio team found no background noise, no room tone, just void. The kind of silence machines can't record, the kind that exists before sound learns to exist. That night my partner called, said the Hanley house had burned down. No signs of forced entry, no lightning, no accelerant, just a sudden fire that started from within the basement floor and died before touching the trees. No one heard it. The report said, unexplained combustion. I called it what it was, a reaction, the end of resonance. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something had moved on, something satisfied. I went back one last time. The air smelled clean, too clean. The ground was soft, and under the ashes a single glass jar remained intact. Inside was nothing but dust. And yet when I held it to my ear, I swear I heard breathing, slow, steady, 3 beats apart. Sometimes I think about opening that jar again, just to be sure. But then I remember Evelyn's last words. You wouldn't understand. You still hear them. And maybe she was right. Maybe I do, maybe we all do. Because silence isn't the absence of sound. It's the graveyard where every scream goes to sleep. You start to lose track of what's real when you live too long among echoes. They begin to shape themselves into patterns your mind wants to believe. After the fire, the Bureau closed the case. Officially. but closure is a paper word. I still had Evelyn's notes spread across my desk like pieces of a body that refused to stay buried. The handwriting shifted over time, from graceful loops to sharp, almost mechanical strokes. Her last entries weren't confessions, they were instructions. One line read, "If you listen long enough, the silence starts to hum back." Another, "The ritual is not in the act, it's in the repetition." She believed the universe was a wound trying to heal itself through rhythm. Each death was a pulse, every scream a heartbeat she wanted to still. I began tracing where her theology came from. Every citation, every symbol, every cross-reference. And I found something older than her movement, older than the church. A collection of sermons from the 1890s printed on brittle paper and archived under the name The House That Heard God. The language was almost identical. It spoke of houses chosen to absorb the burden of human sound. It warned that those who listen too long become vessels for the unfinished song. Whoever wrote it, Evelyn had read it. Maybe that was the seed. Maybe she just watered it too well. I visited the remains of the Hanley house again, just dirt now and the outline of a basement that refused to disappear. Someone had built a small wooden cross at the edge of the lot. No flowers, no names, just a single nail in the center. When I touched it, the nail was warm, though the air was cold. I don't believe in miracles, but I do believe in patterns. Heat means energy, and energy means something still moving. I should have walked away, but curiosity in this line of work isn't curiosity, it's infection. That night I dreamed of the house as it was, whole again, clean, full of light, but beneath the floorboards, a pulse, slow, heavy, like something asleep but listening. Evelyn was there too, not as a person, as a whisper that crawled under my skin. "You don't stop the song," she said. "You finish it." When I woke, I wasn't alone. My phone was ringing. An unknown number, a man's voice, steady, polite. "Agent," he said, "you opened the jar." I hadn't, not really, but I didn't correct him. He continued, "You can't close what's already breathing." The line went dead. I traced the call, payphone, half a mile from the old church. We pulled the camera feeds. Nothing, just static. But in one frame, half a second long, the image of the church door glowed faintly, as if someone had lit a candle behind the lens itself. The next morning, I returned. The church smelled like dust and rot. Pews covered in sheets, sunlight crawling in through fractured glass. On the pulpit, an open hymnal, page torn, notes rewritten in red ink. It wasn't music, it was measurement. 3 lines of notation, always repeating. Above it, scrawled words, "The house must listen to itself." In the basement beneath the church, we found something worse. Jars, dozens of them, labeled with dates. Inside each, nothing visible. But when the tech team ran sound tests, the microphones picked up faint vibrations, frequencies between human heartbeat and whisper. Someone had been recording silence, collecting it. You can tell a lot about faith by what it chooses to keep. These people weren't worshiping God. They were worshiping the absence of Him. As we cataloged the evidence, I realized the handwriting on the labels wasn't Evelyn's. It was newer. I sent samples for comparison, a partial match to one of the deputies who'd guarded her transport years ago. He'd retired soon after, moved 2 towns over. We brought him in quietly. At first he denied everything. Then he smiled, that same small, measured smile, and said, "You've been listening too, haven't you?" His pulse barely moved. His eyes stayed fixed somewhere behind me. "She taught us that the sound never dies," he said. "It only waits for ears." He told us he'd visited her once a month in the institution, that she didn't speak, only hummed, that sometimes when he left he could still hear the humming in his teeth. We searched his home, found more jars, some empty, some cracked. one filled with ashes and a cassette tape melted halfway through. We played what was left. Evelyn's voice, but distorted, drawn out, deeper. "Pain is harmony," she said, "and harmony is mercy." The rest was a sound like wind inside a throat. That night I sat in my office, lights off, the jar from the Hanley house on my desk. I told myself it was just glass, just air, but every few minutes it fogged, as if something inside was breathing. I counted to 10. It cleared. I counted again. Fog. The rhythm was perfect, predictable, like a metronome set to the human heart. I thought about smashing it, ending whatever symbolic hold it had. But then I heard it, not through the jar, but behind me. A hum, low, precise, feminine, the same lullaby. I turned. Nothing. The room looked normal, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I had stepped into someone else's listening. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboards felt deliberate, every breath too loud. The human body isn't built for total silence. It starts inventing noise to survive. In the absence of sound, the brain hums to fill the void. Maybe that's all it was, my mind refusing to be quiet. But the pattern never broke. 3 seconds between hums, always 3. I tried to ignore it, to drown it with the TV, the radio, traffic outside, but noise didn't help. It only made the silence fight harder to be heard. That's when I understood what Evelyn meant by "you still hear them." She wasn't describing hallucination. She was describing inheritance. Once you've heard true silence, once you've stood in a place that has swallowed screams whole, it never leaves you. It waits for you to run out of distractions. 3 nights later, the jar cracked on its own. No heat, no impact, just a thin fracture spiraling from the base to the rim. I touched it, warm. I told myself glass does that sometimes, but as I set it down, the crack expanded, like a breath being taken in, and then I heard it again, faint but closer, a whisper, not English, not prayer, just sound, raw and alive. The pitch rose, fell, rose again. It wasn't random. It was language stripped of meaning. The kind of sound a child makes before it learns words. The kind that still believes everything it says will be understood. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. And in that frozen moment I realized the truth Evelyn had tried to write but never finished. The ritual was never about killing. It was about teaching silence how to speak. She hadn't been erasing sound. She'd been translating it into something that listens back. When the whisper stopped, the jar was still. My reflection looked pale, hollow, smaller than the glass itself. I left the office without turning off the lights, drove until the road ended at the river, threw the jar into the water, watched it sink. Thought that would be enough. But even now, sometimes when the world goes quiet, elevators, parking lots, sleepless nights, I catch the echo of it. 3 notes, low and patient, a lullaby without melody, and I remember her last smile. The way she said it wasn't my turn. Maybe she was right. Maybe none of us have turns. Maybe we're all just waiting in line for the house to hear us scream. By the time the Bureau reopened the case, the silence had already spread further than any report could measure. 3 new bodies, 3 new homes, all within a 50-mile radius, each one left clean, each one marked with the same Trinity symbol drawn behind something ordinary. A clock, a mirror, a family photograph. Whoever was doing this wasn't copying Evelyn. They were finishing her conversation. I headed the task force. We called it Operation Stillwater, because everything about it felt calm on the surface. Too calm. The kind of calm that waits before it breaks. Our analysts mapped timelines, chemical traces, psychological profiles. None of it screamed. None of it even spoke. But patterns whisper, and if you listen long enough, they start telling you where to look. Each victim lived alone. Each had reported hearing something before they died. A hum in the walls, a soft knocking, the faint sound of breath where there shouldn't be any. Neighbors always said the same thing. They were quiet people. Maybe that's why they were chosen. Silence, calling silence. We went back through Evelyn's correspondences, the ones recovered from her cell. Dozens of envelopes addressed to post offices across the South, unmailed, unsent, each sealed but empty. I slit one open. Inside, no paper, just a faint dust, fine as ash. We ran it through analysis, bone particulate, infant age. I stared at the result longer than I should have. Whoever carried her faith hadn't just studied her, they'd inherited her remains. We traced the chemical signature of that dust to a hospital incinerator outside Montgomery. The logs showed a maintenance crew had accessed it last year. 2 men, 1 woman. The woman's name made my chest tighten. Claire Duval, former nurse's aide. Same clinic as Evelyn, 30 years apart. She'd been 6 when the Hanley house burned, a child who'd lived 3 blocks away. The police report listed her as an eyewitness to strange lights. I drove there myself. The address led to a farmhouse swallowed by kudzu and time. Curtains drawn. No sound. I knocked once. The door creaked inward, unlocked. Inside smelled like old soap and wet wood. The kitchen table was set for one. In the center, a jar. Of course, this one filled with dark water and something pale suspended within. Maybe cloth, maybe not. On the wall above it, photographs pinned in a circle. The victims, all of them. Lines drawn between their eyes, forming triangles. At the center of those lines, a small picture of Evelyn, her prison portrait, smiling like she'd won. And beneath it, handwritten words, "The voice has multiplied." I heard the floor groan behind me before I saw her. Claire, mid-40s, calm. The kind of calm that comes after long prayer or long madness. She said my name as if reciting it from memory. "You came to listen." Her eyes were wrong, not empty, full of something she wasn't supposed to understand. "She taught us that sound is sin," she said softly. "That mercy isn't forgiveness, it's quiet." I told her Evelyn was gone. She smiled. "She's not gone, she's distributed." I stepped closer. On her wrist, faint scars, circular burns. "You think she spoke to you?" I said. "She didn't. She infected you." Claire tilted her head. Infection and conversion, same process, different intent. Then she lifted her hands, palms outward, red ink lines spiraling from her fingertips. Not random, measured. She'd been drawing the Trinity symbol on her own skin. The jar on the table began to vibrate, water trembling, forming concentric ripples. "It's listening," she whispered. "It knows you now." I reached for it, but she moved faster, grabbed the jar and slammed it against the floor. It shattered. The air shifted, sharp, electric. My ears rang, though no sound came. For a second, the world felt folded in half. One side noise, the other nothing. Then it was gone. She fell to her knees, shaking, whispering words I couldn't follow. When backup arrived, she was silent. Not mute, chosen silence. Eyes open, lips moving without sound. She stayed that way through transport, through intake, through questioning. Days later, she wrote one sentence on her cell wall in red. "He's finished tuning the world." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing static, faint, rhythmic. My phone buzzed. An unknown message, a photograph, a jar sitting on a windowsill. Below it, 3 dots, the kind you see when someone is still typing. I waited. The message never completed. We traced the number, dead account, unregistered, disposable SIM. It shouldn't have worked, but it did. I deleted it. Hours later, the same photo appeared on my office computer. No network connection, no message, just the image. The IT team blamed malware. I blamed memory. A week later, the lab called. The liquid from Claire's jar wasn't water. It was formalin, a preservative. The object inside wasn't cloth. It was a human tongue. Female, mid-40s. DNA matched Evelyn Cross. Impossible. She'd been buried, cremated, processed, yet here it was, preserved, waiting. I asked the coroner how something like that could exist. He shrugged. "Depends," he said. "Did you ever confirm who was in that coffin?" I didn't answer. We exhumed the remains. The bones were right, the dental matched, but the skull showed no surgical marks. The brain had never been extracted, yet the report from her autopsy said it had. Someone had switched the body. Someone had buried the noise while keeping the signal alive. By then, the Bureau wanted me off the case. Too personal, they said, too compromised. They were right. I'd stopped investigating. I was chasing resonance. But truth has a tone of its own. Low, steady, impossible to ignore. I heard it again in my dreams. The hum, the lullaby, the counting. This time there was something beneath it, breathing in sync with me. When I woke, I found blood under my fingernails. Not mine. No wound. Just a faint stain. Brown, old, flaking. I didn't report it. Some things you can't write into evidence. I went to the institution one last time. Evelyn's cell was empty. Her bed made. Her Bible open. The nurse said she died in her sleep. Heart failure. But the way she said it, the hesitation between words, told me she didn't believe it either. I asked to see the body. The sheet covered her face. I lifted it. No stitches, no scars, but her mouth, slightly open. And from inside, a thin thread of red silk ran down her chin, like a spider's line anchored to the world. I touched it, warm, and then the faintest breath. I stepped back. Maybe reflex, maybe air escaping, or maybe what was left of her still trying to speak. When I left the hospital, I realized I was humming. Not a song I knew, just 3 notes. Slow, precise, the same rhythm from the tapes. I stopped. The air stopped with me. Silence, full and alive. That was the night I stopped sleeping altogether. People think investigation is about facts. It isn't. It's about rhythm. Finding the tempo of a lie and matching it until the truth breaks time. I had become part of the rhythm, and somewhere, out there, the next verse was already being written. They called it a trial, but trials are about closure. This one was about endurance. Claire Duval sat in the courtroom like a statue carved from frost, her eyes fixed on nothing. When the judge read her rights, she smiled, faint, polite, the same way Evelyn once did. She never once denied what she'd done. She only questioned the wording. "Kill," she said softly. "Isn't that just another word for silence?" The room shifted. Reporters scribbled, cameras clicked, but it all felt distant, muffled, as though the courthouse itself didn't want to listen. I sat behind the prosecution, watching her breathe in perfect rhythm. 3 seconds in, 3 seconds out. That pattern again. Even here it followed her. The evidence was overwhelming. DNA, handwriting, recordings, the jars. But no one could explain the why. Religion, psychosis, cult programming. Every theory felt smaller than the act. The psychiatrist said she displayed learned delusion. I called it inherited purpose. Because somewhere between faith and imitation, she'd become the vessel for someone else's will. The prosecution painted her as a remorseless disciple, the last echo of a doctrine that should have died with Evelyn Cross. But I knew better. She wasn't the last, she was the messenger. During cross-examination, her defense tried to humanize her. The childhood trauma, the night terrors, the loneliness. She listened without blinking. When the lawyer asked if she felt regret, she tilted her head and said, "Regret is noise." Her voice didn't tremble. It rang, calm and absolute. The jury recoiled, but I felt something colder. Admiration or fear, I couldn't tell. Halfway through testimony, the lights flickered, just once, enough to hush the room. Claire smiled. "Do you hear it?" she asked. No one answered. The bailiff told her to remain silent. She laughed quietly. "That's all I've ever done." The recordings we played for the court were different when broadcast through speakers. The hum changed pitch, as if adapting to the space. The technicians swore the frequencies were identical, but I could feel it in my chest, the vibration climbing, curling under the ribs like breath that wasn't mine. Several jurors complained of headaches. The judge ordered the volume reduced. Still, the sound lingered, not heard, but remembered. When Claire took the stand, she began to hum the pattern herself. Low, measured, 3 notes, repeating. Security moved in, but the judge ordered her to stop first. She did, instantly, then whispered, "He's here." They called recess. People left the room in silence, but I stayed. The air smelled of ozone, like after a storm. I realized my hands were shaking. It wasn't fear, it was resonance. The rhythm had infected me, too. We all wanted to believe this was about one woman and her delusion, but something older, quieter, was moving beneath us. When the verdict came, it was predictable, guilty on all counts. The crowd exhaled. Reporters filed stories. Justice, they said. But I watched Claire and she didn't look defeated. She looked relieved, as if conviction was part of the ritual, as if judgment itself completed the circle. Before sentencing, she requested to read a statement. The court hesitated, then allowed it. She stood, chains faintly clinking, and unfolded a single piece of paper. Her hands didn't shake. Her eyes never lifted. "This," she said, "isn't confession. It's transcription." And then she read, "The first sound you ever hear is your mother's heartbeat. The last sound you'll ever make is your own. Everything in between is imitation, echoes pretending to be life. We are born screaming because silence is the truest form of God, and we are terrified to meet him." She paused. Every pen stopped moving. "You call it murder," she continued. "I call it restoration. Noise is pain made permanent. We were chosen to erase it, not for power, for peace." The judge ordered her to stop. She folded the page, smiled faintly, and whispered, "You can't stop the song halfway." They escorted her out. I followed her with my eyes until the door closed. And for a moment, the entire building seemed to inhale. Then, silence. Pure, dense, final. The next day, the courthouse janitor found 3 small circles scratched into the wood beneath the defendant's table. Perfectly carved. No tool marks, no debris. Just the symbol, repeating, as if burned by thought alone. After the trial, the press feasted. Headlines screamed, "Cult of Silence ends." But it never ends. It just changes frequency. The jars were stored in evidence lockers across 3 states. A month later, a guard reported one of them humming, faint but constant. They transferred it to Quantico for analysis. The hum stopped during transport. The truck driver died in his sleep that night. We're not supposed to talk about coincidences in federal reports, but there are no coincidences where silence is involved. It fills the gaps between facts, makes them fit. Claire's execution was scheduled for spring. She didn't appeal, didn't speak again. The day before, she requested a single object in her cell, a mirror. When the guard asked why, she said, "Because I need to see which side the sound comes from." They denied the request. When they brought her to the chamber, she hummed under her breath. Steady. 3 notes. The microphone registered the vibration even after she was gone. The technician said it was interference. I said nothing. There are sounds we aren't meant to identify. Afterward, I stood outside the facility. The wind had stopped. Not slowed, stopped. I realized then that judgment isn't the end of evil. It's just its reflection. We convict monsters because we need to believe they're separate from us. But the truth is simpler and crueler. They're echoes of the quiet we try so hard to avoid. I thought about Evelyn, about the Hanley house, about the jars. Every case leaves something behind, a fingerprint, a stain, a sound you can't unhear. This one left me the hum, low, constant, patient. I hear it even now. Maybe it's my heartbeat, maybe it's hers. Maybe the world itself is just a recording waiting to fade. They say monsters fear judgment, but what if judgment is their sanctuary? What if they crave it because it's the only time the world listens to them completely? And what if that's all any of us want? To be heard, even if only in silence. There's a room in every investigator's mind, a place where the cases never close. It isn't built from walls or memories, it's made of echoes. And if you stay in this work long enough, you learn that some echoes don't fade, they just change shape. It's been years since the last trial. The files are sealed, the evidence boxed, the names forgotten by everyone except those who dream in the dark. I left the bureau soon after. They said burnout. I said silence. Same thing. I moved south, somewhere quiet, a town with no history worth remembering. I stopped answering calls, stopped writing reports, but the rhythm never left. 3 notes, low, lower, gone. Sometimes I hear them in the hum of the refrigerator, sometimes in my pulse, sometimes when I wake before dawn. I realize I'm humming back. People ask why we study monsters. They think it's to stop them, to draw a line between us and them. But the truth is darker. We study them because we recognize something familiar, because we want to know how close the edge really is. Evelyn taught me that evil doesn't need to shout. It just needs someone willing to listen long enough. I've read her notes 100 times. Each line feels like a map drawn by a ghost trying to remember its own coordinates. She believed the world was unfinished, that every scream was a thread, and that to silence pain was to complete creation. Madness, maybe. But there's a logic to madness that frightens me more than chaos ever could. When I look back, I don't see the crimes anymore. I see the spaces between them, the pauses in testimony, the moments right before someone speaks. That's where the real horror lives, not in the act, but in the hesitation, because that's when the human mind decides what it's willing to believe. I've spent years cataloging sounds, recordings from the scenes, static from corrupted tapes, background noise we used to filter out. One clip keeps me awake, a jar breaking, then nothing. But when you amplify it, when you slow it down, you hear something faint, a heartbeat, not human, not mechanical, just steady. It lasts exactly 3 seconds, then silence again, like a message in Morse code from the other side of reason. Sometimes I wonder if the ritual ever truly ended, if the idea itself found new vessels, people like me who keep revisiting it in thought, in speech, in memory. Every retelling is another hum, another vibration keeping the pattern alive. Maybe that's the curse of understanding. Once you define the monster, you become part of its language. I've tried to let go, to believe that silence is peace. But silence is only peace when you don't remember what it used to hold. For me, it's still full, heavy with all the things people screamed before they disappeared. And when the night is too quiet, I feel it pressing against the walls, waiting for me to respond. The locals here say my house is haunted. They hear humming near the river. I tell them it's wind, but there's no wind on windless nights. I keep a jar on my desk, empty, clean, ordinary glass. I tell myself it's just for pens, but sometimes I think it's waiting. People like to believe evil dies when justice is served, but evil doesn't die. It reorganizes. It hides in the folds of ritual, in the cracks of language, in the silence between sentences. It waits for someone new to start listening again. Maybe that's why I still record, not to expose it, but to keep it contained, to trap the echo before it finds another voice. Maybe that's my ritual now. I used to think monsters were made by pain. Now I think they're made by purpose, because purpose without empathy becomes precision, and precision without soul becomes worship. Evelyn, Claire, all of them. They weren't chasing death. They were chasing harmony. And harmony, when stretched too far, becomes something that no longer cares who it silences. Sometimes, in my weaker moments, I wonder if they found it. The stillness they worshipped. If the hum finally stopped. If, in that void, they felt what they called God. Maybe they did. Maybe they became it.
Maybe that's what eternity really is, not light or warmth, but a perfect, endless quiet. But I'm still here, still listening, still counting. 3 seconds, a pause, then nothing. And in that nothing, I hear everything. The screams, the prayers, the hum, all blending into one long infinite exhale. The sound of a world that wants to be silent, but never can. Maybe that's mercy, maybe that's punishment, maybe it's both. Or maybe it's just the house, still listening,